From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilios. That is Sean Fazan. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcast. Sean Fazan, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Interesting week, no doubt about it. We'll get into some stuff, but first, remember, download, subscribe, rate, review, like, share. We have the new Fox 8 Overtime YouTube page, so go subscribe to that, like, and share. We'll have this up shortly on our YouTube page as well, also wherever you listen to your podcast. So, it has been a minute since we spoke. There's been a national champion crowned in a different sport in Louisiana that has occupied a lot of our time. But nonetheless, you know your boy's still been working. It is mock draft season. As of the time of this podcast taping, it is not complete. But by the time you get to it later today on this, what day is today?
Today's Wednesday.
It will be published. I guarantee you that. So tune into that. But I wanted to talk today about a visit, a pre-draft visit, a top 30 visit. I think you know where I'm going here. His name is Hendon Hooker, and it was reported that Hendon Hooker is going to take a pre-draft visit, was going to fly in to do a pre-draft visit with the New Orleans Saints. And obviously, given the position, given the college, given what he went through last year, this caused a bit of an attention-grabbing thing for the Who Dat Nation / Saints fan base and those of us that cover the team. So, first, let's start with this. Hendon Hooker visiting the Saints is a part of the pre-draft process that is completely normal. It's completely normal. What I mean by that is you have your senior day, you have your combine, you have your pro day, you have your private workouts, and you have these top 30 visits. Each team is allowed to have 30 potential draftees come into your facility, and you do your interview with them. Maybe you check them out. Maybe you try to do some on-field stuff. But in this case, Saints choose one of their 30 on Hendon Hooker. Now, I'd have to go back and check to see how often they use all 30 because what it basically is, it's the last piece of information before you put your grade on a prospect. And the reason for the Hendon Hooker visit is pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. This is medical.
Right.
This is a medical situation. A guy that, had he not tore his ACL pretty late in the season, combined with his age at 25 years old, makes him somewhat of a risky-ish prospect, at least for a first-round pick. He'd be a first-round pick, or graded-wise, if he didn't have the injury plus the age. But those two factors are working against him. However, he has had some significant recovery over the last few months. He hasn't done much. Has he done any pre-draft work in terms of on the field? I don't think he can.
I'm not even entirely sure.
He's been doing the interviews. So all you have are the interviews and the on-field tape from a season ago at Tennessee. So this is the last part of the process. This is probably the Saints. In fact, as I ask around, I think this is really the direction that it is. The Saints wanting to want one last medical checkup to update his medical recovery, give that projection, which in turn leads to the grade on that prospect so they can properly put him on that board. That way, you're not kind of going blind based off of what you hear. You get one last look at the guy. You get your doctor to look at the guy. And you talk whatever you need to do. And this is where the final grades, the final touches on draft grade come into play. So this is what I believe it is. I believe it is a medical checkup for a guy that is dealing with an injury, a significant injury, at a pretty premier position. I don't think he's an option at 29. I've asked a little bit, and I can't say that with absolute fact, but I can say based off of what I'm hearing, I don't think he's an option at 29. Here's why. And we talked about it.
We have several times.
They could have had this all along. If he was an option at 29, the Saints could have had this all along. And even if it wasn't at 29, it would have been a reasonable plan of attack to go up a few spots to get him if they wanted to ensure they got him. You could have Hendon Hooker in the first round if they wanted him. So that's why I don't necessarily think this is for the first round at 29. Because look, then the Derek Carr pursuit wouldn't have necessarily made sense.
Yeah.
If your plan all along was to get a first round quarterback. Now, I know 29 is a little bit later. It's not necessarily top of the first round, and maybe those guys don't have quite the guarantee of franchise material. But I do think drafting a first round quarterback with a franchise that hasn't drafted a first round quarterback since 1971, that would make for some headlines, and that would be saying something.
Would that maybe kind of show that they've learned from their mistakes and not prepping for the future as they should have?
That's a great point. I believe, and I have said it on this show, quarterback investment is sound business. It's not bad business. It is good business to constantly invest in that room until you have a guarantee proven guy within your locker room that you know is your next franchise. They feel very strongly that Derek Carr is going to be that guy. Very strongly. The contract states it. But you're only committed to him financially for 2 years, and it's probably going to end up being for 3 years for Derek Carr. So it's always good business to at least see what's out there, in particular a guy coming in on a rookie contract. They've never had a quarterback on a rookie contract start for them in forever. I guess since Archie Manning, 1971. So I think there's a strong chance. I've said this before. The Saints take, better than 50% chance, the Saints take a D&D guy, a draft and develop guy at the quarterback position. The question becomes, where is that most likely? In Hendon Hooker's case, because there was a mock draft that had him going number 5 overall. And that was from a former GM, and Mike Tannenbaum, now works for ESPN. In fairness, that's the only one I've seen that high. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple of them where he crept into the back end of the first round. But for the most part, I think it's a second round. Maybe he slides to the third round type of prospect, which happens all the time. It happened last year. I mean, we thought there were going to be at least 2 or 3 first-round picks. It ended up only being 1. So, and there have been some, to be fair, that have Hendon Hooker graded either above Richardson or Levis in this draft.
Right.
So I guess my point would be, in that situation, while that might be an option for someone, I don't think it's going to be an option for the Saints at 29. Could be wrong. Maybe they're just saying, hey, we're going to stock this room. We're never going to be. It makes sense, right? They've been caught kind of barehanded. They've been caught with no one or subpar play at that position because of injuries for the last couple seasons. So they want to make sure they have to give themselves the best opportunity. And not just with Derek Carr, by the way. Jameis Winston. Yeah. I mean, if you're bringing a guy like Hendon Hooker, and he outplays, I don't know when he'd be ready. I guess maybe not this year. But if he were to outplay a guy like Jameis Winston, who's only on a 1-year deal, could it force movement there? I don't know. But I had a feeling the reaction was going to be pretty hot to this. That some met with excitement, some met with a little more even temperament. But I just think it's a part of the process. I think it's a legitimate part of the process. I do think the Saints are taking him serious as a potential quarterback at the next level. But I do think this is last bit of medical information and to get a proper grade on their board. And just my opinion here, I don't think he would be their guy at 29. Maybe at 40. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he would be their guy at 29. I think at 29, given where they pick, given the positions that they need, and what could potentially be available based off the draft boards that I've seen, they could probably draft a more impact player, which you will see who that impact player is when that mock draft gets posted. And like I said, depending on when you watch this, it may already be posted or it's coming soon on fox8live.com/the Final Play app. Check that out. So it's fun, and we're going to get a lot more of this over the next couple of weeks because, free agency really hit us hard.
It did.
And then it kind of hit a little lull. And I told you this. It was going to swing back to the draft pendulum here. And here we are. You're going to see some visits this week. I'm actually working on that to see who else could be entering the Saints facility as a top 30 visit. I know there was a report about Clayton Tune out of Houston. Again, draft and develop guy. He's not going to be a starter. Maybe he's a guy you can develop into a quality backup so when you get caught in a situation, he can step in and help you out at some point. So that's my thoughts on the Hendon Hooker visit. I hope that was thorough enough because that's all I got at this point.
I do have one final thought about Hendon Hooker, and I think if he didn't get injured last year, I think we wouldn't be looking at his age in such a negative light. Usually, if you have a quarterback who's healthy, who's about this age coming in, they're described as NFL ready.
Yeah. I could see that being a double-edged sword. I can see, at 25, he's mature, or at 25,
Exactly.
by the time he's actually ready and in his prime, is he going to be too old?
Yeah, I can see that too.
Because if he needs the 3-year gap, I guess 28 wouldn't be bad depending on how he developed. But I could see that being a double-edged sword. I don't think that's working against him nearly as much as that injury plus his age, because he's not going to play next year. No, most likely. He's probably not going to be cleared to practice until August.
Yeah.
So I just think, this is just, it's all a part of the process, and every now and then a big name pops up and everyone reacts, and that's what we do, what we're supposed to do. But I just think that's where it's at with the Hendon Hooker situation. As usual with the Saints, it's a pretty middle of the road sort of, hey, this is part of the process, we're going to keep doing this, and that's where they're at right now.
All right, everybody, you heard it here. For Sean Fazan, I'm Vasilios. Make sure you guys go and subscribe, rate, and review to the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. Follow the new YouTube channel at Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. And we'll catch you guys next time on another episode.